The airport security line was moving fast that morning, too fast. People were relaxed, shoes in hand, phones out, coffee cups half empty. That's when everything stopped. A TSA officer held up his hand and said calmly, "Ma'am, I'm sorry. These can't go through anymore." The woman blinked. "What do you mean anymore? I flew with these last year." She pointed at her carry-on bag. Nothing unusual. No liquids. No electronics. No sharp objects. But the officer wasn't looking at her bag. He was looking at her shoes. Behind her, the line froze. A few people laughed nervously. Someone muttered, "Since when are shoes a problem?" The officer leaned closer, lowered his voice, and said something that made her face drain of color. "These insoles are flagged under the new 2025 carry-on rules." That's when people around started checking their own bags. Someone whispered, "Wait, I have those too." What most travelers didn't know, what TSA hadn't loudly announced yet, was that 2025 quietly changed how carry-on items are screened. Not just liquids, not just batteries, but everyday items people had flown with for years. And this woman, she was about to learn the hard way that, allowed before, means nothing anymore. As the officer placed her shoes into a gray bin for secondary screening, another alarm went off 2 lanes down. Different passenger, same confusion, and suddenly, the question on everyone's mind was the same. The woman stepped aside, still holding her boarding pass, watching as her shoes disappeared behind the gray screening curtain. She wasn't alone anymore. 2 more passengers were pulled from the line, both for the same reason. That's when the TSA officer finally said the words that made the tension real. Any removable insole, gel pad, or cushioning insert must now be screened separately. People stared at him. A man laughed and said, "You're joking, right? These are just comfort insoles." The officer shook his head. Not anymore. What most travelers didn't realize is that in 2025, TSA upgraded their scanners. The new systems don't just detect metal, they analyze density, layering, and hidden compartments. And gel-based insoles, they suddenly started showing up as irregular mass zones on the screen. Not dangerous by default, but unverifiable without extra screening. That's why the line slowed to a crawl. A woman ahead whispered, "I bought these at the airport last month." Another passenger opened his backpack in panic, pulling out a neck pillow, a shoe bag, even a folded jacket, checking everything. Then something worse happened. A supervisor walked over and said quietly, "Check the power accessories too." That's when TSA bins started filling up with portable chargers, charging cases, smart travel gadgets people bought online. One man protested, "My power bank is under the limit." The supervisor didn't argue. She just replied, "It's not the size, it's the type." And in that moment, travelers realized this wasn't a random delay. This was the new normal. As the woman finally reclaimed her shoes, the officer gave her a warning she wouldn't forget. "Next time, pack these in checked luggage, or remove them before you arrive." She nodded slowly, because now she understood something most flyers still don't. In 2025, TSA doesn't just care what you carry. They care what your items can hide. By the time the woman reached the gate, she thought the worst was over. She was wrong. Just as boarding was announced, a TSA agent appeared again, this time holding a small black tray filled with items taken from different bags. The agent spoke calmly, but loud enough for nearby passengers to hear. "These items are allowed to fly, but they will almost always be checked." Everyone leaned closer. Inside the tray were things almost every traveler owns. Power banks with fast charge labels, wireless earbud charging cases, smart luggage trackers, compact travel adapters with multiple ports. A man in line frowned. "So why stop them?" The agent pointed to a power bank. In 2025, many of these use stacked lithium cells. On the scanner, they look almost identical to restricted battery assemblies. That's when it clicked. It wasn't about breaking the rules. It was about looking suspicious to the machine. The woman remembered how her bag had been pulled aside, even though she knew she packed nothing illegal. And now she understood why. New TSA scanners don't think like humans. They don't recognize brands. They don't care what you meant to pack. They react to density patterns, heat signatures, internal layering, So even a fully legal item can trigger a stop. Another passenger sighed. I fly every month. This never used to happen. The agent nodded. That's the point. 2025 changed the system, not the passengers. Then came the warning no one expected. If you stack electronics together, chargers touching batteries, cables wrapped tight, your bag is almost guaranteed to be searched. People immediately began rearranging their carry-ons right there at the gate. The woman zipped her bag slowly, more carefully than she ever had before. Because now she knew something crucial. In 2025, it's not what you carry that delays you. It's how your bag looks to the scanner. The next alarm didn't come from electronics. It came from a backpack that looked harmless. A young traveler stood frozen as a TSA officer gently unzipped his bag and pulled out something soft, folded, and ordinary. A neck pillow. People stared. Is that seriously a problem now? Someone whispered. The officer didn't sound annoyed. He sounded tired. Not the pillow. What's inside it? That's when the truth about 2025 screening became impossible to ignore. Many travel comfort items, neck pillows, padded shoe bags, compression socks, even thick jackets, now contain memory foam, gel layers, hidden zippers, modular inserts. On advanced scanners, these materials create blurred density zones, areas machines can't clearly read. And blurred zones mean one thing: manual inspection. A woman nearby hugged her jacket tighter. I wear this every flight. The officer nodded. And you'll probably be stopped every flight too. Not because it's forbidden, but because soft items can hide hard things. That's why TSA began quietly advising officers to pull aside. Bulky hoodies stuffed in bags. Rolled clothing packed too tightly. Pillows with removable covers. Shoes with thick soles or extra padding. The woman thought back to her own delay. The shoes. The insoles. It all connected. 2025 wasn't about banning items. It was about visibility. The clearer your bag looks on the screen, the faster you move. Then the officer said something that made several people immediately open their bags. If your carry-on looks messy, layered, or overpacked, expect a stop. The woman zipped her bag with new respect. Because now she understood the real rule no one posts on signs. TSA isn't searching you. They're trying to understand your bag. By the time the woman finally sat at her gate, she felt like she'd survived a test no one warned her about. Around her, other travelers were still repacking bags, pulling items apart, sighing in frustration. That's when a TSA officer, off duty now, coffee in hand, sat nearby and quietly said something that explained everything. Most delays in 2025 aren't about banned items. They're about bag clarity. The woman looked up. The officer continued, lowering his voice like it was a secret. The scanner wants to see clean layers. Not clutter. Not compression. Not stacking. And suddenly, the new rules made sense. The travelers who passed fastest all had one thing in common: electronics placed flat and separated. Shoes with no inserts are packed in checked luggage. Soft items loose, not tightly rolled. Chargers and batteries not touching each other. No one had broken the rules. They just packed the wrong way. The woman remembered how she used to cram everything into her carry-on to save space. In 2025, that habit was costing people time. Sometimes flights, sometimes connections. The officer stood up and left her with one final line. If TSA can understand your bag in 3 seconds, you're through. If not, you're pulled aside. As boarding was called, the woman smiled faintly. Next time, she wouldn't be surprised. And now, neither would you. Because the real 2025 TSA rule isn't written on a website. It's this: pack so nothing hides behind anything else. That's how you fly faster now. Airplane.